today. The UFC will have one of its monumental numbered cards in April, that being UFC 300. But the question is, what is going to be the main event? Is it going to be Conor? Will it be Izzy? Will it be Pereira? Will it be Volk? I'm here today to show that it probably will be none of these fighters, and I'm not sure who it's going to be. All of this we discussed today on Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We are right back in it, right back at it. Today we coming to you with a little quick rant about UFC 300. So here's the thing. UFC 100, huge pay-per-view, huge show. One of the shows that cemented me as an MMA fan back in the day. You know what I'm talking about? Brock Lesnar stepping in there with Frank Mir, GSP fighting. It was a great show. UFC 200 was a little wonky, a little weird, UFC 200, it's that crazy friend that when you hit him up on a Sunday morning, you don't know what that fool did Saturday night. He could have went out of town. He could have went to a party. He could have been shacked up with a chick. He might have been in somebody's dorm room somewhere. You don't know what happened. You know what I'm talking about? That was what UFC 200 was. You know what I'm saying? Amanda Nunes there, Misha Tate, Brock, Mark Hunt. It was strange. DC, Anderson Silva, weird stuff. You know what I'm saying? UFC 300 on its way. And I was just thinking about it as something's in my eye. Like, who's going to fight at UFC 300 in the main event? So you had Alex Pereira go out there and capture the light heavyweight championship of the world last Saturday night at UFC 295. He calls out Israel Adesanya. Now, one thing I wanted to say about that real quick, bro, his translator is normally awesome, but his translator did not do his call out of Izzy justice. Because the way that he interpreted, or, the way he said the things he was trying to interpret that Alex Pereira was saying, the call out was way more respectful and way more tasteful than what the interpreter said to the world. So shout out to Alex Pereira for what he was saying about Israel Adesanya and him, basically reaching out to give him a chance to, basically pick himself up and get back there in the octagon and let's do this fight, do this. I don't even know. It definitely wouldn't be a trilogy, but I guess it would be a trilogy within the confines of the UFC. So with that being said, Alex Pereira calls out Israel Adesanya. Now I was thinking, this would be an awesome fight to main event UFC 300. Great fight. It's been a great rivalry. The rivalry is up there with DC and John Jones. It's great. It's awesome, right? But Izzy, in the last few days, it seems like he's not really into that fight. And I will, normally I would fade him on that one because I'm like, bro, just take the fight, dude. Like, he's offering you a chance at the title shot. At the title, I should say. But I will say that I got to respect Izzy on that, and I rarely respect Izzy for anything. You know what I'm saying? I will give him props on, it seems that he is really, his friendship with Jamal Hill it really means something, and he really wants Jamal Hill to get that shot at the belt. Now, one could argue that he just ain't ready to step in there with Pereira because the last time I checked the score, you've only won one of those bouts. One of how many? 2 in kickboxing, 2 in mixed martial arts. You only won 1 of 4, bro. So, I think that there's something to that. He's coming off of a loss, to somebody he should have beat. So, might be a little sketchy right there. But let's all just play along with the Israel main character in my movie. Let's just play along with that and say that, he wants Jamal Hill to get that shot. Who, Jamal Hill just gave up the title due to an Achilles injury. So it looks like, unless the UFC is able to appeal to Israel Adesanya in some way, Izzy's not going to do the fight with Alex, and so that kind of rules that out for UFC 300. Alex is not going to be able to fight Jamal Hill in time for UFC 300 because Jamal Hill is still healing up from his Achilles tear. So, not really sure what his timeline is of when he can return, but I would probably assume that you probably won't see Jamal till mid or late summer before he would be ready to step back into the octagon. I would say maybe he might be ready by July, probably more like August, September, somewhere around that area. So that kind of rules out Alex Pereira because there's not anybody else at light heavyweight, in my opinion, that is something that can main event UFC 300. Granted, I know Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes did main event it, but they weren't the original scheduled main event. You know what I'm saying? If I'm not mistaken, it was also Connor and Nate Diaz were supposed to be involved in that. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like, there's not anybody else that's going to fight Pereira at light heavyweight that's going to make sense. So you take him out. Volkanovski is supposed to be fighting Ilia Topuria. I believe that fight is going to go down in February. I can't see them holding that off much longer than March. So I don't believe that that's going to go down as the main event of UFC 300, as well as Volk has lost a little bit of steam after that loss to Islam. So it's kind of like, I don't really see that going. Speaking of Islam more than likely will defend his championship against Charles Oliveira. Although I haven't heard much rumbling that they're going to try to use that as the main event or throw that on UFC 300. And granted, while that fight would be big, I'm not sure it's going to be big like main event of UFC 300 big. So I don't really know about that one. But we know that Volk and Topuria is probably out for UFC 300. Sean O'Malley and Cheeto has already been announced, so that's not going to be at UFC 300. What are we going to do there? The flyweight championship is already about to be defended at the Leon Edwards Kobe Covington card. So that's probably out there, nor is there another flyweight championship fight that's going to make sense to main event UFC 300. So that's kind of out. What are they going to do? Like, what's going to be the main event? There's not anybody I can really think of at welterweight that would make for a huge show that they could have there. Even, let's just say Kobe goes out there, defeats Leon, and it's a back and forth crazy war, and, and they're like, oh, we got to see the rematch. I don't know if that would be big enough. You know what I mean? Kobe's stock is not as big as it once was. And if Leon beats him, then Kobe is going to disappear into the dust. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see that. John Jones is out. Tommy Aspinall is the interim heavyweight champion. But I would think the UFC would want to lean more into having Tom Aspinall return in the UK to fight somebody in the O2 Arena. So I don't see that happening in a UFC 300. So that's kind of it for Tom Aspinall. Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, of course, they're having their middleweight championship fight. That's going down in January. It might be feasible by April for one of them to turn around, possibly fight Adesanya, but I haven't heard any rumbling that Adesanya is ready to come back, at least as soon as April. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but I guess it's a possibility that one of those guys could come out of their fight. Whoever wins would go on to fight Izzy in the main event of UFC 300. But that just kind of depends on if Adesanya is ready to come back. And also it would be kind of depending on how much damage those guys take in that fight. You know what I'm saying? They might not want to turn around that quickly. So, if they pull out Hamzat, who's Hamzat going to fight in the main event of UFC 300 unless it's going to be for the belt? And I don't know. Again, if they would give him a title shot. I don't even know if Hamzat can fly to America, to be honest with you. Something's going on with Hamzat. I'm not even sure if they're allowing him in the country. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that could happen. And that also, again, depends on if Dricus or Sean are able to turn around in April. So who's it going to be? You know what I'm saying? Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. They're still shopping this fight around, but it doesn't seem like, I mean, it could be different, but for some reason it just doesn't seem like Conor, for whatever reason or whatever's going on with that fight. Dana doesn't seem to be bringing it up for that. I know he would want the shock value, but it doesn't seem like Conor and Chandler is being proposed for the main event of UFC 300. As well as, I think Conor's stock is always up for the most part because he's the biggest star in the sport. But bro, nobody cares about Michael Chandler now. So it's like, I don't know if they're going to use it as the main event, but it just seems like a lot of things are pointing to Conor might not be ready in time, or that fight might not be ready in time. I don't know what's going on with Conor, the king of snow. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So who's going to fight? You know what I'm saying? Who's going to fight at the main event of UFC 300? There's no female fight that I can think of that would be big enough to main event UFC 300. And now the rumblings of Ronda Rousey coming back, which, let's just put this out there. Ronda Rousey is washed, okay? I was about to call her Wanda Rousey. Either way, she's washed. You know what I'm talking about? But it would be a big name value, star power to have Ronda fight somebody in the main event. But who could Ronda even fight? And she's washed. But who could she fight, though? I made a previous video about this some months back when it was first talked about that Ronda was leaving WWE and she might be coming back. But, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, they've already made the title fight between Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva to fight for, the Bantamweight Championship. So, that rules that out. And, I mean, unless they're going to do a fight at 145 between Ronda and somebody, it's like there's nobody for her to fight either. And there's not another female fight that makes sense for the main event of UFC 300. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do y'all think? You know what I'm saying? If you got an idea of who you think's going to fight in the main event of UFC 300, let me know in the comments. Because I don't know who they're going to make. I don't know what the main event of that show is going to be. And that's supposed, they always do their shows like that. 100, 200, now 300 are like their biggest shows. But honestly, there's nothing lining up, in my opinion, that's going to main event that, unless there's a rivalry that we're going to see emerge in the upcoming months, a feud, a war of some sort. At this time, I don't know who's going to main event UFC 300. And it's kind of irking me. Like, who's it going to be? Dana, who's it going to be? Hunter Campbell, who's it going to be? Mick Maynard, who's it going to be? Ari Emanuel, who's it going to be? So I don't know. If you all have any ideas on who's going to main event UFC 300 or what fight you could see being put into that slot, let me know. Nevertheless, I just wanted to touch base with you guys about that because I just found that to be kind of strange, mainly because Izzy is not going for that Pereira fight. So, let me know. Who do y'all think is going to be in the main event of UFC 100? UFC 300, I said 100. UFC 300. Let me know because I can't figure it out. Nevertheless, I want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.